Hi, it's Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO here in beautiful Montreal, welcoming you to another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. We're part of Fractional Pros Canada, the home for Canada's fractional community, and you can find us on Facebook. We bring you conversations about everything fractional that matters for fractional executives and businesses from coast to coast. Think of this as your go-to spot for real talk, practical wisdom, and strategies you can actually use, all without the corporate fluff and with plenty of Canadian content. Whether you're a fractional pro or a business in our great country of Canada and beyond, this conversation is for you. Grab your espresso and let's dive in. Welcome to the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. I'm your host and Fractional CMO, Robert Mendelson, here in beautiful Montreal. And just down the road, but heading south this time, is Angela Papalia, who is in Sayulita, Mexico. Angela is a fractional general counsel who bridges the gap between complex legal frameworks and high-level corporate strategy. Today's episode sponsored by the Fractional Pros Canada.ca directory. Scaling a business in Canada is hard enough without the high price tag of a full-time C-suite hire. Most CEOs I talk to need high-level strategy to break through, but they don't want the overhead, the long-term risk, or the 6-month recruiting cycle. When they ask for a shortcut, I send them to the Fractional Pros Canada directory, a curated hub for vetted high-tier fractional talent like Angela, experts who step in, find the gaps, deliver ROI from day one. Instead of digging through generic job boards, savvy leaders go where the specialists are already gathered. Business leaders, find your next strategic partner on the directory at fractionalproscanada.ca. Angela, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, good morning. Well, morning for me.
Yes, you're more on the western side of things. So good morning to you and good afternoon to me and good day to wherever you are, whatever time it is when you're listening. Angela, I want to start off, your background is super interesting, very international track record, practice experience from Toronto, Australia, Malaysia, South Korea. You certainly do get around. How has that global kind of borderless perspective, I guess you would call it, influenced how you advise companies on scaling and navigating different regulatory environments?
I would think it influences how I advise companies on those things and everything, because it affects who I am. You know, I think that one of travel, and not just traveling, but even going to the point of living within other cultures, other areas, expands your awareness zone in a non-book way. It's not an academic type learn, but your communication skills are affected. Your awareness of other considerations, of cultural considerations, just broadens. In terms of like jurisdiction and regulatory, I mean, you see things in different places you live that might flick a switch, be like, oh, that could be a consideration that I may not have thought of had I not, been within that culture. But I think that how it affects me is more in a general way rather than in specific legal issues, because it affects who I am. I've been told I have very good judgment, so I don't know if that's a byproduct of having traveled a lot as well. But I guess, I don't know, I just became very comfortable being uncomfortable, being in new situations, and they excite me rather than concern me. So I think that approach is taken into working with clients on their issues as well.
Well, that's great. Always being ready to embrace change and not being afraid of it. I certainly am in that camp as well. And I totally agree with you. Travel really opens your eyes up to what's going on outside of our own little bubbles. And I've done some travel myself, and every time I go to a new place, new culture, and you're forced to be super aware of what's going on around you and not just what's happening inside your head. And you really pick up things and a lot of ahas, like, oh, they do it this way here and not that way. And
Sure.
and while often, at least in my case, I start judging it right away, I then
Yeah.
go beyond that and go, you know what, that kind of makes sense. I wonder why we don't do it that way at home, etc. So
Yeah.
it really does expand the horizons and opens up a lot of.
It
It
does. And
shows you
different
there's
cultures.
not just one way to do something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And get used to different comforts and things that we take as a given will be available in all situations are not. And then after a while, you get used to not having it and you adapt and you become comfortable in that situation too. So,
Yeah, you're making me think of what I was in Chile last summer with my son, and we get into the Airbnb, and in the evening, after we make dinner, turn on the hot water tap in the kitchen to wash the dishes. There's
yeah.
no hot water coming out,
Mhm.
and so I find out from the owner that no, there's only hot water in the shower here. We don't do it for the for the kitchen. We
Mhm.
just it's not viable. It's too expensive and everything, and
Sure.
environmental and all that stuff. Like, okay, we'll adapt to that.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah.
So you've also got a background in high stakes civil litigation and workplace investigations, and I'm really curious.
Yeah.
What does a workplace investigation actually look like? Give us some examples of what kind of topics of workplace litigation is about.
Workplace investigation. Okay. So workplace investigations have to be handled very strategically. These are often we deal as fractional counsel, as fractional with time sensitive manners on clients. Um, Workplace investigations are one of the things that are very time sensitive. So all workplaces are required to have a policy that everyone is aware of that if you have a complaint, you are being bullied at work, you are being harassed physically, sexually, something is not comfortable, and you file a complaint, with your supervisor. All workplaces are supposed to have a policy outlining your right to make that complaint and the process that you follow in order to do so, and then the process that will then be taken up. So, for example, someone files a complaint, they're being bullied at work. Um, they would file it with, their manager, and then there needs to be an interview process. And these are some of the things that the policy, and depending on the nature of the workplace, the industry, these will change a little bit. Are we dealing with, dangerous machinery? Are we in an office space? Like there's some nuances that are very company specific. But generally, once you make the complaint, um, an investigation has to happen. Now, some companies will do an internal investigation. They will have the manager or a manager from another department or whoever seems to be the best available to conduct these interviews. So everyone who you would say is relevant to the issue, so the complainant and the people or person or people who the complaint has been made against, all have to be interviewed. And then any potential witnesses also have to be interviewed. Statements have to be done. Everyone has to sign off on the statement. And then the people conducting the interview or management makes a determination. And this is really something that companies need to follow very strictly. They need to have the policy, and need to follow the policy very strictly, to protect themselves from ending up at the Human Rights Tribunal or any sort of backlash for this. Um, some places, and this is how I've been involved, and I agree with this, I do not think internal investigations are a good idea
Hmm.
because, so say you're the manager and I'm the person who's made the complaint against X situation in our department. There's a half decent chance that I feel that you've had some play in it. And now a lot of people are not comfortable sitting down with their boss when the boss says, "What's the problem?" And you're like, "Well, Mary and kind of you." So that's why, and I got involved because a number of companies we worked for, I was general counsel kind of before they started calling it fractional general counsel, from about 2010 till 2017 for about 10 different companies we varied through. And one of them, unfortunately, had a number of bullying and harassment complaints at the office. I mean, these are adults. These were 55-year-old women. Um, and they came to us and they said, what do we do? And we really said, you should let us conduct the interview. And they were all on board because someone's just going to be more honest and more straightforward when one, they see a lawyer and they're all like, this is privileged, right? This is our information. I can speak to you. And I would tell them, yes. I said, you can speak to me on the record as part of your statement, which you have to do. But if there's anything that you want to tell me, and this is where it becomes a bit nuanced, because you want them to be honest and you want to build the rapport. But who is my client? My client is the company. My client is not you. So you technically, we don't have the same privileged information. So often what I would do, and I had a wonderful relationship with management and owners at this company, is I would have them sign off on a direction that says, if there's any part of the interview that I want to keep confidential in my own discretion, that doesn't really go to the heart of the issue, then that's okay. I'm allowed to do that. So I'd have them sign off on that waiver ahead of time. Because generally when people would say, I wanted to, and the reason that I got to do, or had the benefit of doing these interviews, is it was an all women's complaint, involved about 4 or 5 different women, the one example in my head. And I was the only female lawyer. I was like 31 years old, 32 years old at the time. But they decided, no, we think these women are going to open up to a other woman who's not, the other options would have been 65-year-old men who lovely in their own sense, but just a bit more intimidating. So anyways, I became the investigation interview person at this. So yeah, have the policy, follow the policy, have everyone sign off on their statement, and then make the decision. And if there's any allegation that any type of management was involved, then you really have to outsource this process, because then it's not independent otherwise.
Yeah, it really reminds me of, the highlight of one of the reasons why having a fractional work with a business is very often better than having, a full-time C-suite executive in that seat, is because we are removed. We're that third party. We're that outsider. As much as we're in the decision-making processes and in the, maybe the weekly C-suite meetings, we're still not in that whirlwind. We're still not in the day-to-day, and we can bring a fresh perspective and still, in many respects, keep that arm's length where we're going past all the noise and just getting right to the heart of the matters, focusing on what's important and not getting involved in all the politics, and being able to bring a more objective view to what's actually important. So I think that's really a great example of that, as you just described as well.
And Ontario has a bullying and harassment legislation that actually outlines the requirements to have these policies. About what year are we in? Probably about 8 or 10 years old now.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, so that's compliance advice to clients. Like, they have to have. Simply not having the policy is violation, even if nothing's happened. I mean, I don't know who's going to point out, hey, I haven't read or heard of this policy you talk of. But, it's one of those, it's not an issue until it's an issue. So someone makes the complaint and then they're like, what do we do? Well, where's your policy? Oh, we don't have one. And then it becomes an issue.
Is Ontario the only province with that?
BC might as well. I need to double check that, but Ontario, I want to say it was around a 2017 legislation or amendment to, I think, I'm going to say about 2017 it came in. Maybe a bit earlier. I don't know. Time goes.
Wow. One would think that would be, province-wide at this point in this day and age. That's kind of surprising to hear that.
Like countrywide?
Yeah, countrywide, yeah.
Yeah. The issue is, though, that employment is under the heads of power of the provinces. So you'd have to have all provinces agree that we're going to have the exact same piece of legislation. I mean, I think they all should, but I do think between, an Ontario, a Quebec, a BC province, and, something in the prairies already, that the legislation would, just based on environmental factors, be a bit different. I don't know.
Right.
But I agree. Everyone should have one.
How do you manage that balance between somebody, the stereotype of whenever we say the word legal to a CEO, they're thinking of, the departments of no, right? Be careful. Don't do this. This could get
Yeah.
you into trouble. This could
Hmm.
expose you to this.
Hmm.
But there's still a way for somebody like you, a fractional, general counsel, to work with the C-suite and show them the way that you shouldn't stop doing things because you're afraid of them. You
Hmm.
should just be aware of risks and then find the right path to continue moving forward. Is that the right way to do it?
I think that's absolutely the right way to do it, because I think the Department of No is should be a bit antiquated. I mean, whether we're still referred to as that way. I have a friend here who was one of the original founders, workers of Airbnb. So pre-IPO, he was involved there, and he talks about they had a general counsel working with them in their very early days, and said she was exceptional. And I asked him, I said, what was it that made her exceptional? Like, she's then gone on to work with other phenomenal companies. Um, and he said she always found a way to get it done. So as opposed to the Department of No, it was the Department of we got to do it this way. So if you went to her with anything, be like, well, here are your risks. However, if we want to get this done, these are our options for doing so. So um, it wasn't a blanket, we can't do this. It was, doing her diligence in her job of making sure everyone is aware of the possible risks, but then also following that up with, now here are our options to progress. And I think that's sort of the best comprehensive job or answer as fractional GCs that we can do. Because I mean, once in a while, something might be a hard no for reason, but companies can't live at a stalemate.
It's kind of changing that Department of No to the Department of we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. That's it. Take the founders and all of, they just want to run their business. It's our job to figure out, how do we make the legal work? What do we need to do to protect them there and to make it plausible? So, I think, especially as you get to work with companies and you develop a good relationship with, with their management, with, your contacts, and they trust your judgment and they trust that you're going to be diligent and comprehensive, that you're not just telling them no because you haven't taken the time to explore all opportunities. Once you have that trust with them, that they know that you're very good at what you do and that you are someone who's detailed and is going to go into it, that just becomes so much easier, because half of what we do is, our actual work, your compliance, your contracts, etc. But the other half is we take the worry off of those running the company, like the operation. So if you need this to happen, if it's a good idea for the company, I'm going to find a way to make it happen. We're going to figure it out. Might not look exactly like you thought, but we're going to find a way to make this functional.
Now, you also do something a little bit different from fractional general counsel. You also run corporate retreats
Yes.
down in Mexico. So tell us a little bit about that. How did it,
Oh,
what do those look like? Are those around, does everybody, bunch of execs get together and talk about the latest legal issues for the
no, not
weekend on the
usually.
beach? Is that what that
Not
is?
not usually. Um, so Jennifer, no, this is my love project. So if anyone out there is watching this and you want to bring someone, contact me. So we do them very turnkey. So basically, you book your flight, you show up at the airport, we pick you up from the airport, take care of everything in the middle, and then get you back there whenever you need to be back. Um, and they're specific. So going into a retreat, generally people plan them about 6 months out, because, you get a number of employees, people, management, with children, with soccer schedules, with all of this, they often, need to plan them out a bit. During that run-up time, I will work with my contact on what the programming they want for this to be. Now, some of them just be like hands off. Often they want some sort of leadership team building activity in there. Um, uh, we did one was actually a negotiation on a shareholders agreement, where there had been a dispute, and it's going back a number of years, but there had been a dispute, and they came and they said, well, where's your shareholders agreement? What does it say? Oh, we don't have one. That we were going to do that next week, which happens. I mean, you put all of your money or your debt and you build You have your line of credit, you have your own funding, you have other money borrowed to start this business. You're just trying to generate cash flow and build it up at the beginning. And, your lawyer says, oh, you need this contract. Yeah, manana, we're going to do that later. And then it's when it becomes a problem, that's it. So we had that, and we had part of an agreement, and they ended up coming down here, and we sort of hashed it out. And by the end of everything was signed. And in the middle, one of them learned how to surf a little bit. So, I mean, what I'm saying, the topic of the retreat can be whatever your company needs. Do you want leadership, team building? Do you have a specific project? I had some lawyers reach out to me a while ago, and because I'm qualified to teach CPD, like our continuing professional development hours. So I'm talking with a girl right now, like, wow, what if you can get half your CPD done while you're on vacation and, be sitting on the beach while we're having these great interactive discussions? People are much more inspired than they are, sitting in a room in the courthouse, which is where we taught them otherwise.
Yeah, no kidding. That sounds like the funnest way I've ever heard of to
Yeah,
hammer out a partnership agreement too. It's
exactly. And then in between there, talk to me about what do you guys want? All of the options. Do you have any yoga interest? Do you want to sit Temazcal, which is a traditional Mexican sweat lodge? We had a group here. It's very big on cacao, and there's some like native mezcal, like tequila, harvesting
I
near.
know it well. I love the
Really,
mezcal.
yeah. So do you want things like that? But there's really just so many options and contacts that have developed over the years here. So, well, each retreat has their basic. Oh, and the best part, our accommodations are exceptional. So we
What's the
generally
biggest what's the biggest kind of change that you see happen when from the time that people arrive, and you've probably in many cases also have interacted with the attendees a little bit before, so you kind of, I would imagine, see this transformation kind of like from suit to bathing suit, and you see changes in their behavior, changes in their thinking. What are the big kind of breakthroughs that you would typically see when people come down to do these retreats? And how long does it take before they start showing up? Is it after the first few hours, the first couple drinks? Does it take a couple days?
most people are pretty quick. We get them back from the airport, bring them, and we're getting this one of a few really nice houses, and they're 8 bedroom, depending on people, 8 bedroom houses, nice swimming pool area, often view of the ocean. You know, once they get in, usually we'll drop people off. They get into their room, and we have chefs that deal with all of the food as well. I mean, they'll do some meals in town because they want to, explore the town and eat it. We have some nice restaurants, but generally breakfast and lunch and snacks and stuff we have option. Well, there's always food option, but generally once they get into the room, they shower, unpack, whatever it is, and then they come down and they'll sit at the table and there'll be coffee, some drinks, snacks. They sit down and it's like, like this biggest sigh deep. It's just like, wow. I mean, being warm helps, especially depending time of year. If you come from a cold place, the second people become warm, that really helps. But they sit down and everyone just smiles. I was like, look how happy everyone looks now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it does take pretty quick, but you're right. So the end of like day 5, 4 nights tends to be about the length that we've gotten asked for most of them. I, without question, hear at least half a dozen times from everything. Wow, you're doing it right. I want to be here. This is how I should be running my practice. This is how, so we get that. And they all often, because we will generally do a closing circle where it's like a decompression. How was your week? Not just follow-up questions. How do you feel? What were the highlights of it? Everyone talks about priority shifting. Everyone talks about how the priority is shifting. They generally always say they feel healthier. I mean, you're walking and you're more mobile, I think, throughout the day, more so than like when I lived in Toronto, especially during the winter, where it was house to car to office. So you're moving around more, a lot of trees around. The food is more locally sourced. Like we don't have a big supermarket. We shop from the farms and different things, and the chef is exceptional. So people, even if their tequila intake has gone up a little bit that week from usual,
What are the
they're
chances?
substituting it with mangoes from the trees and like really healthy food and movement and um yeah.
Yeah, serve me up a fresh mango margarita, please.
How about you? Just let me know when to pick you up at the airport.
I'm on my way right now.
Right?
Um, let's talk about the two-letter word that is always the big topic of the day, AI. And
Yeah.
in the legal world, especially, I would imagine for smaller businesses, and I would imagine for bigger businesses nowadays too, the first go-to is often when they have a legal need, like, oh, let's AI could draft that for us. There's all these great AI tools, or
Uh-huh.
we need to review this contract. Let's run it through the AI.
Yeah.
What's the slippery slope that those companies are on, or is there has the bar gotten high enough where there is, to a certain point, a reliance that you could be confident in for these AI tools, but always at the end have it reviewed by an actual human lawyer?
Yeah. Um, well, the risk I think is a few things. One, it's only as good as its prompts. So you need to know what to ask it. Okay. And I mean, I use it, but I also then use my 3 years of law school and 16 years of practice experience on knowing what to prompt it. Because sometimes I'll play around with it too, um, and prompt it for the same thing, but with two different ways. And in one way, get a great result, and in the other way, it looks okay, but it is deficient. Um, then there's the fact it just lies to you. Like I used ChatGPT a while ago to help with Factum, and it just like spits out cases that say, I'm like, that's not what that case says. And now I'm arguing with the computer, so I shut it off. Um, so I think the fear is, or fear should be, um, if you don't know what to prompt it, you don't, they, I don't mean you, but I mean a client wouldn't know what to
In
prompt
general,
it,
yeah.
in general, exactly. Wouldn't properly know how to edit it to know that it's correct or missing in certain things. Um, I know I have a very new general counsel client, and they even told me, I mean, two very sophisticated guys. They're intelligent guys. They've been in real estate financing and development for a while, and had said, I was using ChatGPT to do the contract amendments, this and that. But two things, and this shows how smart they are. One, the time it takes him, monthly to do them, coupled with the risk that I'm going to miss something, it's easier just to let you do it, because in the time that I'm playing around with ChatGPT or Cloud or whatever other service they're using, it still takes their time, and it's going to take them a lot longer to edit it or to be able to disconcern where it's just blatantly wrong. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're still very new in the how much can I trust it stage. And even like I have the paid subscription, and it is better, but it's still really inaccurate.
Scary. Scary to
Yeah.
hear that. We hear about tools getting better and better. We hear it was a Claude, somebody's come out with, they keep rolling out, vertical specific specialty tools.
Yeah.
I think somebody rolled one out for legal in the last few weeks as well. So always keep an eye on those. But yeah, at this
Mhm.
point, the advice is still keep the human in
Sure.
the lead and not just in the loop. And maybe it
Yeah.
can be useful for some back and forth, for some suggestions, but ultimately
Sure.
the confidence level is low, the risk is high, and do the math of what
Yeah.
that's costing you, and not just your time, but also the
Exactly.
potential
Exactly.
stuff that you're going to miss for a whole bunch of different reasons.
Like in
Okay.
Ontario now, when lawyers file factum, there's a new statement we have to sign off on the bottom that says, I swear that I have personally verified all information in this document, because I think the courts were being quite upset with getting all of this case at line 55 says this, and you turn to it and it's about a totally different topic.
Well, there was one court case, high profile, where the evidence that was produced was found to have been produced by ChatGPT or a friend, and it was completely hallucinated, and
Completely.
right.
Mhm.
So that's happening.
Yeah, it is.
Um, you're active in the not-for-profit space as well, and you have a lot of expertise in governance there. And talk to us a little bit about a company, even if a company is not in the not-for-profit space, there are some best practices of building your business from many perspectives, as if you were a nonprofit, because it will ultimately help your business become better structured, more attractive for investors, for that eventual exit. So talk to us about some of those advantages of approaching your business in that way.
Mm. So my not-for-profit experience is mostly derived from, I mean, I had a couple not-for-profit clients over the years. One was a women's art gallery, uh, uh, an athlete in the Hamilton, Toronto area who, uh, he was from Nigeria, and I put together his articles for sending money back to buy school supplies in, his home village, etc. But the majority is I sat as vice chair on the board of directors for the SPCA for about 4.5 years. Um, and I had the benefit of working with some very, very experienced senior directors on that board. Um, so I think because it's not for profit and you have more regulations, terms of compliance, like you're not only you have to have all your finances statements in order, but when you are a registered charity, a lot of this has to be made public. So it does hold you accountable to keeping everything up to date rather than having, to reinvent a minute book or financial statements from 8 years ago, which has happened. But the governance of the meetings was very well run. Um, they, and the women I worked with, and mostly abortive women, not completely, but were very accountable, saying, these are donor dollars. These are donor dollars. We are obligated, we have fiduciary obligation to use these in the absolute best interest to make the most of them. This money is for the animals. It is not for admin costs, people, getting in arguments. So it was taken with a view of keeping our costs as skinny as possible, which I think really would be a good way to approach a company. Um, document updated compliance, like everything was signed off to the T. Our minute books were precise. We were organized. When all policies were written, were up to date. And because we had this volunteer board, I mean, my background was legal. There was another much more senior lawyer on the board when I got there. We had an accountant on the board. We had, because we do like a skill matrix before we go into it, and everyone signs off on, just these categories. What is your strength in each of them? So then you're also having a beautiful diversification sitting in these conversations. So based on different backgrounds, different experiences, these brainstorming sessions were quite exceptional at times.
As a fractional GC, what are the types of other fractionals that you would typically play with?
Generally, they haven't been fractionals that I've worked with. It's been companies that had them, accountants, and to an extent, financial advisors. But I would say accountants throughout my entire career have been my main uh, like collaborative work overlap. Generally, a number of the companies that I was general counsel for, their CFO was always my point of contact. And then again, HR would be the other one. Big, because being fractional or a GC, the employment's going to be a huge part of what you do. So your HR overlap is always really, really important here as well. So people and money, I guess.
People and money.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
The two biggest areas of problems, concerns, etc. People and money. That really sums it up right there, for better, for worse.
Yeah.
Angela, this has been a great discussion. And I think this is the first podcast I've done where there's a lot of pleasant nature sounds happening in the background. I hear the occasional birds chirping
We have
and
chickens. I live on a ranch. I'll show you.
okay, so it's chickens. All right, beautiful.
I
Love
don't know how
that.
much you can see. There's yeah, they went down to the other end, but there's over 100 chickens. So it's
Wow,
beautiful. This is
that's
where
a
my
lot of
eggs.
eggs.
This is where my eggs come from.
I'm getting. I think I'm gonna go make breakfast again after this.
Yeah, you
You
too.
got me hungry. All
Yeah.
right, Angela. Final question for you: if you
Sure.
could put one message on a billboard
Uh-huh.
for millions of fractionals and business leaders to see as they drive by it every day on the highway of life, what would that one message be?
I love you. Have an awesome day.
I love you. Have an awesome day.
Awesome day. Yeah.
Clearly, this is the Mexico, living in Mexico in nature effect, clearly presenting itself in this
Yeah,
message. I love
it
you.
is.
Have an awesome day. I mean, that
Yeah.
is just so, yeah,
I don't know what else would be on the billboard because you want someone to go by and smile and not spend too much time reading it where they, we're in the car in front of them either.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's something a lawyer would say.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I kind of play both sides. Around the time I came down here, a little bit before, so I did my MBA. So it kind of helps to look at business, not just on the legal side. Wanted to actually understand the nuances of what my clients were doing. So yeah, maybe that's where the Department of No turned into the Department of Let's give it a try.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Angela, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Fractional Pros Canada podcast.
Pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. If you're a fractional professional based in Canada, we'd love to have you join us in the Fractional Pros Canada Facebook group, the home for Canada's fractional community. It's where Canadian fractional executives connect, share insights, and help each other succeed. Until next time, I'm Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO. May your impact be full-time, even if your hours are fractional.